But how about monetary policy and politics? Are we going to have QE3? Ed?
I think the Fed needs to be very, very careful here because of the upcoming election. They can't appear to be partisan in any manner. They started talking QE3 during the summer when we had a series of very poor economic announcements that I think accumulated in a very, very poor employment number, I think was the final number that really set things into motion. But since then, things have moderated somewhat. So I think we're not hearing from it, not because of election issues, but really because the economy has moderated. And I think in the last announcement for GDP, back the June 30th announcement, I think the economy surprised people. I believe it was 1.8 or 1.9 was the GDP announcement. And that's, though fairly weak for an economic recovery, if you want to call this an economic recovery, but many people were out there saying it was going to be less than 1%. And given the employment numbers and some of those economic announcements, the Fed was getting ready to act. Now with the GDP coming out at an acceptable, a very low but acceptable level, well, I think they're just sitting and waiting.
Michael, are we going to have it, and should we have it?
Well, I don't think we'll have it before November. I mean, I think the Fed is going to try very hard to sit on the sidelines and maintain the appearance of neutrality.
Sure.
So if it would happen, it would be right after the election, November, December. You'd see it into the first quarter of next year. But I think the most striking thing about the conversation we're having right now, I mean, even the comment that, well, there was some bad news in July. Well, it's 3 weeks later. I mean, this is an incredibly volatile environment. I mean, part of the reason why people are a little bit up on European stocks right now is because there hasn't been the every other week, oh, the world is ending in Europe this week kind of conversation going on for 3 weeks.
Of course, we
now.
also have the Mario Draghi's comment that he'll do whatever it takes, and believe me, it will work. His words, not mine.
But also too, there was a series of announcements. It wasn't as bad as just one or two coming out.
Oh no, I mean the employment numbers were very disappointing in July. That was 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, if you think about
June
the July numbers were bad too. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about the kind of environment we're in right now, I mean, it really is week to week, and I think that points to sort of two things. One is the markets aren't responding to economic performance of companies. They're responding to the news in the environment around. This is a very psychological market.
It's also because the poor liquidity and
and it's very volatile. It changes from second to second.
And it's also because so much of the market volume is driven by high frequency trading and also the ETFs. I think the ETFs are somewhat 40% now of the market. So it looks like everybody's trying to change the same kind of trail, and so everything moves in the same direction. Everybody's trying to benchmark the S&P and by default selecting similar stocks because they are afraid to underperform. Yeah. So by default, we're going to see volatility as more and more volume moves in the same direction.
Yeah. I have a theory as to how the economic environment changes the market or affects the market. And my theory is that we have really two periods of time that we experience on a regular basis. And one period of time is the earnings season. The other period of time is the non-earnings season. When we're in earnings seasons, investors pay attention to earnings. And earnings are very, very simple to understand. They either beat the number or they didn't. And did management come out with a rosy picture? If you put all that together, hey, here's a buy, right? Now, when earnings season is over, things then become complicated. And that's when the volatility picks up. Because here you got this trader who's used to, as we've noticed, moving very quickly given some news hits the market. And news will hit the market where, say, the PPI comes in higher than expected, or the Michigan sentiment is down below 50 or whatever. And so this guy has to react to that. Well, first of all, he isn't really too sure what the PPI is measuring or why it's low. There's a number of different things there. So I think, to interpret the economic environment given an announcement is a very, very complex thing, and these people just aren't equipped to do it, or don't have the length of time to sit there, and hence we have volatility, all this misunderstanding. And but when we go back into earnings season, we have a much more trending market because, earnings are very, very easy to understand, and earnings for a company are earnings for a company. There's not, if this, there's not all these different connections. So we just finished earnings season now, and we've had a great August, surprisingly enough, right? And I think a lot of that is kind of carryover from a better than anticipated earnings season. But now we are going into a void where the only news will be economic news. How will these traders interpret it? Well, historically, they don't do a good job.
Or worse, political news.
Or political news, yeah.
I mean, I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, in the long run, I think the goal of any set of policies, as we look at, if we go back and look at Dodd-Frank even, has to be, how do we bring that participation back in the market? How do we get a market that really is an agglomeration and has volume that's based on broad participation instead of the sort of margins that we're looking at now? And that, I think, will be the best indicator that our economy is headed in the right direction.
I agree, and I think that some of the volatility we're seeing right now is a function of the quality of the volume. And again, a lot of the real money, the long-term investors have left the market. You just look at the numbers of outflows of mutual funds, for example. They've been negative for months on end. So you're left with banks or shadow banking institutions, high-frequency trading, ping-ponging, all day, creating this exasperated volatility in the market.
And
hedge funds.
there's another aspect to it. A lot of the outflows from mutual funds went to ETFs, and some of the more obscure ETFs that are very leveraged and very difficult to understand for average investors. They actually shouldn't touch them. And there's another aspect to the market that is part of technology, because technology has progressed so much. At a click of a button, you're connected to any stock exchange in the world now.
Yeah.
You can basically get out of a position in the S&P if you wanted to at midnight, and it's as easy as selecting a buy or sell button.
And it's a two-edged fork, right?
And it's a two-edged fork. It's a good thing. And there's a growing herd of so-called technical traders, people who are just looking at momentum and following certain trading systems that they like, certain charts and certain indicators. And that's
those
a
guys
problem.
move on a dime.
They move on a dime. The problem, though, is how do you explain that to the general public? So here come the news media. They make up a story. Well, the Dow went up because Greece is a little better, or the Dow went down because Greece has trouble. They're basically fabricating a story or sort of a focus for a few minutes or for a few hours, so to speak, when the real reason why the market moved has nothing to do with it. And it's a lot of times, if you can follow the volume of where the business is coming from, you can actually understand why the market moves.
An interesting retort to that is also, too, sometimes they stick a label on something as important or not important, and which will cause movement in the market. And last year, I believe it was, or perhaps even 2 years ago, when the European crisis was much newer or fresher in our minds, there was a report that a Greek official said that Greece is not going to support the euro and is looking for an exit or something along these lines, which immediately caused quite a bit of volatility in the markets, and the S&P closed down that day. And I think about 2 days later, a news announcement came out that the Greek official that they were talking about, and I'm sorry, it wasn't a news announcement, but somebody tracked down some investigative reporter, tracked down who this Greek official was. And it was a mid-level bureaucrat in the Bureau of Fisheries who apparently went to some type of event and drank too much and became loud and boisterous and said he's from the Greek government and this is what's going to happen and yada, yada, yada. And so, blame it on the news services or whatever, but there's, again, the instance of making something out of nothing. out of nothing, which is what the markets are prone to do.
Well, the problem of cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
at work in the markets, but
Yeah,
unfortunately,
if you
this
got
is
no news to report, it's
Right.
best you just make something up, I guess, right?
so. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have for today. I would like to thank my panelists for their time and their effort today, and I would like to thank you for watching. And for more information on business and capital markets, please visit www.gbr.pepperdine.edu. For the Grazie Dio Business Review, this is Davide Accomazzo signing off.